I'm Crystal DiMicheli, and welcome to the Forces for Nature show. Do you find yourself overwhelmed with all the doom and gloom you hear of these days? Do you feel like you, as just one person, can't really make a difference? Forces for Nature cuts through that negativity. In each episode, I interview someone who is working to make the world more sustainable and humane. Join me in learning from them and get empowered to take action so that you too can become a force for nature. Welcome to another episode of Forces for Nature EarthX Conference series, where I bring you behind the scenes of my experiences during that week and up close and personal with some of the incredible presenters. One of my favorite things about EarthX is the chance to learn about new technologies and innovative methods that are being used to clean our planet. One of these things that I was introduced to is bioremediation. I had heard the term before, but I wasn't too familiar with what it is. Turns out, when it comes to healing our planet, bioremediation offers a fascinating solution. But what exactly is it? Simply put, it's the process of using living organisms, such as microbes or bacteria, to clean up polluted environments. In this episode, we dive deep into the subject with Cheyne Robertson from Ergo Fito Bio and Rudy Montes from Phoenix Harvest. Cheyne comes from a family dedicated to innovation in soil and environmental health. And Rudy, as a U.S. Army veteran and former State Department official, he brings a unique perspective to this industry shaped by his time in war zones, where the environmental destruction is just as damaging as the war itself. You'll hear another voice on the show too. That's Richard Harmer, who you might recognize as the hosts of the podcasts Rock and Rick and What in East Dallas is Going On. Richard and I work together at EarthX, and I thought it would be fun to have him on as a co-host and bring his dynamic energy to this conversation. Whether it's restoring contaminated soil or detoxifying water, bioremediation turns to nature itself to tackle some of our most pressing environmental challenges. Let's learn how billions of microbes and a few dedicated humans are working to heal our planet. Rudy, Cheyne, thank you so much for joining me on Forces for Nature. It's so great to have you.
Yes, thank you so much. It's actually really wonderful to meet you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is awesome.
You guys focus on bioremediation using microbes and bacteria. What is bioremediation and how does that all work together?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's not like we are groundbreakers or crazy scientists. It's not like we're doing anything incredible. There's a lot of great companies that are doing similar work out there, and it's definitely picking up. I think so many people still today have this inborn or inbred fear of the word bacteria or microbiology. Sure. If you talk to a farmer, he thinks of a disease that's going to come through and wipe out his crop. If you talk to an old person, oh yeah, we're going to introduce some bacteria to your area, they're thinking, is this going to kill me?
Negative
What's going to happen? Yeah, there's a very negative connotation. Even trying to get product across borders is very tricky with the import-export regulations, trying to get product to move across borders. It takes a lot of work just to get kind of the infrastructure in place to be able to ship this stuff.
Sure.
Where it all came from, a little bit of a history, if that's what you guys are after, of what we do.
You talk about infrastructure, not just to ship it from where it is now, but to the...
And that's why it's important to have good partners on the ground that understand local regulations, local laws.
Which is where you come in.
That's right. Here in Texas and then with the other states that we're looking at for the Superfund or Brownsfield sites, we have to look at what the regulations are. Going to the Economic Development Center, when we start touching the ground or even in the area, you've got wildlife management that's involved too. So a lot of things we have to put that in perspective into what we are looking at as a plan. We look at the biggest thing is, the testing. What's the depth of it? What's
the contamination?
Yeah, the contamination.
Because it could go down a few feet or
20 feet.
Yeah. Okay.
Easily.
Wow.
I mean, it's just massive sometimes, depending on where it's at. And a lot of people think that by leaving it alone, it'll go away, but it doesn't work that way.
Okay. But what is bioremediation? And how does it differ than what has a different kind of remediation, I guess?
So, I'm happy to kind of jump in on that. I spoke a little bit about it downstairs just now, the whole concept of biomimicry. Nature has been around a lot longer than us. We are part of nature, yes. but the world was around and thriving for a long time before us. Asteroids hit the Earth, all the dinosaurs die, there's mass extinction events. We've got a richer biodiversity than we ever had before. Sure, we're going through now the 6th mass extinction, which is terrifying, but the world is able to look after itself. It's often we make a mess, we make a big natural disaster. One of the ones that hits close to home for you guys is the Exxon Valdez.
Sure.
And what they saw is that there were a couple of beaches that they really wanted to clean up, tourism-wise.
Right.
I can't remember the exact details. And they go in and they're like, we got this fantastic technology. It uses steam and hot water under pressure to get the oil off these beaches. Unfortunately, they've looked back now on the beaches they concentrated the most of their remediation efforts on, not just the beaches, the ecosystems, mangroves, all sorts. The ones that they concentrated the most of their efforts on, those are actually some of the ones that have still not recovered to this day.
Right.
Whereas the beaches that were smaller, far from a road, no one's really going to go there. We can just leave the oil there. Let it sit, let it forget. But that'll break down over a couple of months, and those ecosystems are thriving. You've got to remember that those hydrocarbons, oil, it's been compressed for millions of years, way down low. But what was it before? It was swamps and wetlands and organic matter that's just been compressed. So yes, it can be a great fuel, but also it'll break down into a beautiful compost. So that is the key.
That is the first time I've heard that.
That is the key to bioremediation. So another example that I gave is the work we're doing out in Kuwait, where Iraq invaded, they pulled out, and kind of in a mindset of spite, they just blew off all the oil wells. You can still go see those crazy photos where it's just smoke and fire, the whole desert, it's lit up. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And those areas have never been cleaned up because it's just oil going on for miles and miles and miles, and millions of gallons of oil. And it's just been hard baked into that sand for 30 plus years. Right. There's areas where it's a couple of meters deep, just oil. And getting in there, that's obviously a kind of a different situation. So now what we focus on doing is we take the microbes, we're able to, that's part of the IP that we feel differentiates our company.
The intellectual property.
Exactly, yes. So we brought it over from the University of Bologna. They'd been working on this for ages. And the IP was all around how you can identify which microbes are going to fulfill which role, how you're able to capture them and hold them so that they don't just die off, and then able to formulate them in a way that's really useful in the environment.
But keeping them natural or organic.
100%. So fully natural. We don't engineer anything. So people like to think of us as a biotech company. We didn't create anything. We always say we discovered something, and we're just trying to put it to work in a new way.
Yeah, it's been there ever since. Yeah.
So these are microbes that already exist that you've seen know how to eat oil or some sort of
sewage.
Okay.
All these natural processes in the wild.
I got a question for you, Rudy.
Yeah.
As someone who went over there while you were active duty, did you think about any of this when you're looking at the desert, just oil? I mean, I don't know, Crystal, that's just, it's on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you had the passion for it when you saw it, looking at that. But, like
this
that
is
one
not
thing
right.
that ran through when you're there with your other buddies and stuff like that, is like, glad I'm not here. I'm actually in a better place. But, we fight our own battles here in the United States. We've got a lot of other contamination going on. So when you start looking at that in the military, you never really thought that, you want to be able to help do the cleanup, and that you have partners that are actually out there doing some stuff, in these places, so moving it and transitioning it from what we had messed up versus what we're getting it back to or better, which what it was a lot more thriving back then. That's another mission we got to look at.
Interesting.
So I'm curious about these microbes. Sorry to go back to the microbes.
No, please.
She likes microbes.
I love talking about them as well, so I'm only too happy.
And I don't know enough about microbes, so this might be a silly question. But I imagine that there are certain microbes endemic to certain areas. So what happens if you bring a non-endemic microbe to an area? Does it become like an invasive species?
That's what I was about to say.
A fantastic question, one that needs to be asked. As I've said a number of times over the course of the week, often when humans get involved and we try to fix situations, we make them a lot worse.
Totally.
Yeah, we're really good at that. That's what I said downstairs.
We're the best.
While we're really good at creating this pollution, we can't think that we're going to have all the answers to just go in there and fix it. So that's a great question. The University of Bologna, they studied this stuff like 20 plus years. I can't remember the exact details. This was all through 70s, 80s, 90s. And they wanted to find out, they went around the world and they wanted to see in soils and bodies of water that are untouched by humans. So Great Plains where there's no farming or mining, up in the wastelands of Canada, down in Australia in the outback. What are the microbes in soil, if it's not been touched by human chemicals interaction? What's living there? What's keeping these ecosystems thriving? Because no one's putting down fertilizer in these rainforests, and they're thriving.
Right.
They're beautiful. You walk in and you can smell the
it.
life.
Yeah.
There's, I don't know about
sure.
here, but in Cape Town, there's people that do these wellness walks, and you pay them to go walk in a forest that's free. But
It's a forest
and
bath.
it's healing, and it is. There's the science behind it. You breathe in those microbes; they're good for you internally. So, sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent. I'm
No, this is great.
a little bit passionate about it. But what they were discovering while they were working on it is that they came across these 42 groups of bacteria, fungi, enzymes, and these ones were constant no matter where they took their soil samples. So
In the world.
yeah,
And so you're saying there are a lot more of them, but they broke them down to the main ones that.
spot on. So I mean, and this goes way back. As I've said, these guys have been developing for millions, billions of years. They didn't just arrive because we discovered them. They were always there. So back when we were a Pangea and all the continents were mushed together, you can imagine how that life would have kind of evened out across the whole landmass. And then it broke up. Other ones might have developed and come in, but you still get the basics. And what we also found is that with these colonies that we put in, once the pollution is gone, there's die-off. So what we do, we're not a complete tool for remediation. I like to say we kind of set the stage for nature to take care of itself. We're an accelerant. We take a super concentrated dose where it might be, you might see this dose of bacteria over a square kilometer of the ocean. We're not taking it into bottles and we're dumping it in super concentrated doses. If, for example, if there's an oil spill on the water, we can go in however you want to do it, off the boat with the fire hoses, with the drone, and you putting the super concentrated bacteria there. It'll eat up that hydrocarbon as fast as it can because that's what it wants to do to survive, and then it's going to die off.
It'll die off.
Well, because there's not enough food to feed all of them.
Oh, it's a natural. Its resources are depleted.
So, I mean, one of the big concerns, you go and you work with these guys in Saudi and Kuwait, and as much as Saudi, they've got this 2030 vision, which I love, where they're wanting to take kind of a step back from, not that won't ever be their main industry, but they want to take a step back from hydrocarbons and focusing on fuels. And with the 2030 vision, they want to focus on tourism and technology sector in Saudi Arabia. But their focus will always be on the hydrocarbons coming out of their ground. And this was a big concern. They're like, what if we put your bacteria here? How do we know it's not going to start going down through the sand and eating up our oil reserves, everything like that? Luckily, we're completely aerobic. So we only operate in aerobic systems. They went through the whole scale of tests. That took years.
The need for oxygen.
Saudi universities. Yes.
The need for oxygen.
Yes.
They need oxygen to operate.
Oxygen.
Because that was a big concern. And I mean, everywhere we've gone with all these universities, we've done lots of tests through Africa, the Middle East, Europe, now moving into Asia a bit more. And everyone wants to make sure their wildlife is going to be okay, which is really important. So we've got a great scientific base behind us to show that we're not harmful. We're a beneficial tool for the environments. We're putting back what should always have been there.
That's right.
That is so fascinating. You know what? Look at the human body. Like everybody talks about the human biome now and gut bacteria.
Spot on.
Like we're part of the world. We're part of the universe. So why would the Earth be different?
No, it's like even more so.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about the Amazon being the lungs of the Earth.
Yeah.
Right. But why wouldn't we do that? And everything why wouldn't we think about it like that?
Yeah. No, but why it's not? Yeah, well, exactly. Why are we not thinking about it? You know, a lot of these places, you know, what are they doing? They excavate and they'll take it somewhere else. A lot of them will get the oil spills and they'll lay them out to a field, let them dry over time so they'll be able to do that. But with us, we're a lot faster and we're a lot safer. I mean, it's a force of nature.
Sure.
To a point where, you know, we're bringing it back so it can actually do something.
Paint a picture for me of what a project would be and how you would go in and remediate it.
Okay. So right now we are really concentrated in a Superfund site in Oklahoma called Tar Creek. So with Tar Creek, what we do in there with the tribe that we're working with and then some of the city officials there, that we're trying to remediate that by doing the testing first. We got to identify what we have out there, knowing that there's already been testing in the past that's already been established, but everybody tests it a different way. And then everything changes. That test could be a year or two old. Well, as climate changes, so does the shifting of Earth, so the shifting of the contaminants that are moving around.
What's the contaminant up there?
Arsenic, lead, zinc, and mercury, I think in benzene.
In the groundwater?
Yes, in the groundwater and in the sludge and in the chat.
Massive chat piles, like 100 foot high.
Yeah, you can see them from about probably 4 or 5
Piles of
miles
this
away.
stuff?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, if you can see them 4 or 5 miles away, you can see them on satellites. If you go to Tar Creek, you'll see it on satellite views. And
Tar Creek.
73 million tons of this. But with what we're doing by remediating and actually putting these things into a product of what we're trying to do, it's almost recycling a contaminated area and bringing it back to life for farming, or it could be for constructional materials that we can grow hemp out of. So once we remediate it, we follow in with hemp and we start bringing back more of a job or a community where they can thrive on as far as another industry. It could be like a cotton. And also with the Tar Creek, as what we're talking about trying to identify with testing, we start looking and say, well, what do we want to bring to this that the community needs? Well, we're going to introduce some marine life. We're going to put some fishes in there after we remediated that contaminated water. So then we'll run tests on those fishes, and we're working with the universities out there to actually look and say, okay, is this viable for the community? Do they have another food source? There's 80 acres out of that retaining pond that we're looking at. They want to put buffalo grass and run bisons back on that thing.
Yeah.
So bringing something back, as people talked about before, that things are getting extinct, these are things that we're trying to bring back.
I don't think Rudy gave enough credit to this Tar Creek site. I recommend you do go look it up. The first time he told me they'd heard about it, they were interested. I looked it up. One of the first things I saw, America's Chernobyl. And Chernobyl, uninhabitable for 50,000 years, they said. Animal species are already moving back in and thriving.
They are, right?
This place, not so much. There's still people there. It's crazy. These piles of chat. Yeah. There's kids that are like sandboarding. You know how you go sandboarding on the sand dunes down by the coast?
On that?
On that.
They go out there and they try to act like it's like a playground, and like it's contamination.
Have they? But it's only been one generation, correct?
No, it's been there from early 1900s.
It ramped up.
The EPA.
It ramped up for production of lead for bullets for World War II.
That's right.
And
it was a number one lead. It was a number one. It's what saved World War II. Pritchard minefield.
Okay, so what's the cancer rate up there? Is there?
It's crazy. There's so many different metrics. One of the big ones they talk about, because these streams are still flowing through these communities where people are getting water, you can see it. It comes up orange. Rudy went there and took some photos. The kids' IQs are dropping rapidly from all this contamination.
Of course.
Wow.
It's the rate of miscarriage. There's so many different metrics by which you can see this is horrible. And once that mine had dried up in its usefulness, World War II's over, lead's not that valuable of a metal, we started saying maybe it's not so good of you. And all those people that we kicked out so that we could start mining, let them move back in. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, okay, what's your timetable on the remediation process?
For a
when you guys
project?
For Tar Creek.
For instance, we're going to do a retaining pond out of that, right? It's about a football field, about 5 foot deep, with a remediation solution. And what we're dealing with, we could be remediated in a couple of months, possibly.
Oh, but that's for a small trial. That's for a proof of concept.
Small trial. That's a proof of concept. This is a football field. It's just what we want to try to establish is a proof of concept to show the world of how the microbes are able to do this. And we're doing it with a football field and another 78 additional acres. Okay, so about 80 acres total. So what we're doing is we're showing what we can do with water, and we're lining it with chat, which is another contaminant, which looks like gravel. And then we have the sludge from the bottom of the water. Then we got the soil on the outside of the other 78 acres that we're going to be doing that as well, depending on where the depth of contamination is and where it's more focused at. So we were able to kind of do this, depending on how they want to move forward and what our plans are. We might be doing 5 acres at a time. That pond, once we get that, remediated, we do more tests on that. That could be fished maybe 6 to 9 months down the road. It's actually been done. So we'll start doing that with universities and kind of show EPA, Economic Development Center, the 9 tribes that are up there that are needing help, in the community.
So, just to add on to that, so this would be the largest project of this scale that we would ever have been doing. So it's an exciting opportunity. It's something that would take decades. Let's not beat around the bush. As I said, we're not magic in a bottle. We're nature in a bottle. Things still take time.
Yep.
We can try accelerate them, but things take time. I feel it's a better solution than $350 million over the last 30 years, and it hasn't changed.
Yep.
The
same old.
One small step is still a step.
Exactly.
It is.
And if it doesn't,
and that's what we're looking at doing, because we did a simple bucket test.
Yeah.
And a simple bucket test was able to show with the contaminant that we're actually remediating. Cheyne sent me the formulation or the solution down there. We took a test on the lab, an actual accredited lab, and then we ran that test. We did the formulation or the remediation with it. We let it set for an hour, and we tested it again. Our lowest score was 88%, all the way up to 100% non-detectable, and that was just a simple 5-gallon bucket test. So you imagine now, start doing this later on a bigger scale. The pilot program that we're looking at on the 80 acres is just something very small from a 40 square mile contaminated site.
I need to add something on there. So when Rudy talks about we're reducing contaminants from 88% to non-detectable, our bacteria don't eat heavy metals. That's not a thing.
True.
That's not possible. Oh. What we do is we take them out of the water and we take them out of the other organic compounds in there. So what the bacteria do is they go in and they eat up all the organic matter that's binding the heavy metals to sand, soil, suspending it in the water. And that means any of that organic matter that you test, any of the soil that you test or water that you test, those heavy metals aren't going to be there. We can siphon them off. There's a company that develops these wash plants where we can do something like 80 tons an hour. Yeah. They're expensive, but if we hopefully got more opportunities to work at Tar Creek, you'd be putting it through these wash plants. The heavy metals are still there. That's a key disclaimer I have to say.
Solids.
We're able to actually siphon them off and then pass that on to a company that specializes in that sort of thing, whether it's sealing them in concrete under roads or anything of that matter. But at least now your water and your soil can be used for agriculture.
Sure.
After it's been tested. We don't just run it through the machine. That's a doozy. Let's put it in the ground. Let's start growing food and letting people eat it. No. Everything gets tested afterwards.
How do you siphon it off?
So that's not our company that does these wash plants. It's this pretty cool dude.
He's actually a veteran.
Yeah, he's a veteran. He's here in Texas. He nuclear aircraft carrier engineer. So he's developed this pretty incredible machine that works with our solution to strip all the metals off, let all the organic matter siphon through, and he's got his technology that captures it. We use a very similar machine up in Kuwait. That's the work that was going on up in Kuwait, where we're stripping all the oil out of that sand. That's the goal. They still want the sand. You just need to get the oil out of there. That oil is not really recoverable. It might be able to be used for tar, bitumen, but they're not worried about that. So whether it's complete remediation, all they want is that sand to be clean. And that we're getting 80 tons an hour up there, which is pretty awesome.
An hour?
Yes. It's a big operation. As fast as we can dump it in, it's going to be cleaning it out.
Yep.
Wow.
I mean, there must be pushback on this because it sounds like almost magic in a bottle.
There we go.
So what are the criticisms of it? And how do you respond? How do you respond to it? I can take on
this one here. Because of the EPA think it's magic in a bottle. They think of it as just another solution. Somebody wants to come up and look at it, but they don't understand the science behind it. So their assumption is going to be they're paying the site to be remediated, but it's just nothing but relocation. We talked to some of the people that are actually doing the supposed to be remediation, and they're pushing it back down the boreholes that's contaminated. So they're pushing it back down in the water basin. And it's the same type of people that EPA is paying them to try to remediate it, but they're not doing it the right way.
They're just pushing it around.
So
yeah, because it seems like to me you have two problems. One of them is the messaging and education problem to them, obviously, right? Yep. Because if they don't understand it. So that's an uphill battle because we're talking about science, Crystal. Like you and I, or especially you're in this, like neck deep into climate change, environment, and you can't even wrap your brain around it.
Right. Yeah.
So how are we supposed to? The public is one thing, and then we got the politicians and policy, EPA.
I mean, we need help from higher echelons. That's what we're really looking at, and be able to understand it. We can educate them as well, but it's an uphill battle, and that's where we're at right now at ground level. These are the battles that we're having here in the United States. But looking at Tar Creek, that's just one of them. We've actually started doing and standing by for some military installations that are getting ready to come up. And some of the stuff that Cheyne and them have been doing, which is where everybody's talking about climate change and carbon sequestration. Cheyne, you want to be able to kind of look at the percentage of the yield increase from the crops, looking at with some of the testing, if that's okay?
So I'll circle back to that if that's okay. What you're saying just with the whole magic in the bottle and getting people's heads around it, that's where we keep trying to emphasize people. It can be very exciting to think we're going to fix this with nature, and it is, but it's still a process. And we keep saying again and again, we haven't created anything. And that also doesn't always sit right with the scientific community who believes we got to make it in labs and it's going to be super effective and everything is so incredibly measurable. And what I was saying a little bit earlier is so often with other remediation projects, and I'm just saying this how things have been done for a long time. Every time you throw in a chemical to try extract this metal, I mean, with gold, they use all sorts of really nasty, heavy metals in there.
Yeah.
Cyanide's one of them. And
which is great for the human body.
Incredible.
I'm kidding, kids.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
And I mean, they are, you throw human solutions at it. You throw in chemicals which work. When they say this chemical, if we put in this dosage, we're going to pull out this much metal. We know that. Great. What's left over after that? And it's almost like this big organogram of all these things you got to remember. And trucks need to be bringing this from out there and that to here and taking out this contamination to be done somewhere else. And it can become a really intense process. And it can take just as long as making the environment favorable to nature looking after itself.
Go ahead.
One of the things I highlighted down there to this point is that we are not magic. There's something like 5 million gallons of oil that's been going on forever, a lot of it off California, that just bubbles up from the ocean floor. It's seepage, completely natural. If you had a 5 million gallon, I think Exxon Valdez was like 2 million or something. If you had 5 million dumped on your local beach, imagine the complete outcry.
Sure. But 5 million, 5 million's over the entire world.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's very spread out. It's definitely very spread out. But I'm just saying with the volume of it that's coming out, it's not like it's floating to the surface and becoming a huge issue.
Sure.
These bacteria have evolved over millions of years. They feed off that. That's their food source. So we're not doing anything too crazy. And that's what we keep trying to say is it might sound amazing, and it truly is when you let nature start taking care of itself. But with what we're doing in the States, we just need the chance. We just need to get the chance to do it.
It seems to me that scientific community has forgotten one thing, one measurement, and that's to include a feedback loop into the system, right? Because if you think about it, oh, it's great, it's done, we did it. But then if you have cyanide, it could be 20 years to where it affects us humans, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so where is the feedback loop? How come we're not measuring that and the impact that it's actually making, and it could, negative or positive? I
mean, there's some incredible talks going on just about the incredible sway, for example, coal mines have at the Chantilly West Ballroom. And is it
here at EarthX?
Yeah, at EarthX. Yeah, damn
at the Hilton Anatole.
Yeah, at the Hilton Anatole. And is it Kentucky where you got the beautiful mountains? And as you said, I believe it's Kentucky. My American geography is not fantastic, but
you're not American.
No, who would have thought? You drive down
Texas.
you drive down these main highways, and they've left the front-facing mountains, the mountains that butt up against the roads. If you take a plane up or go satellite view, you'll just check all these mountains that have just been crumbled down to dust to mine the coal.
On the other side.
Yeah, behind the road.
But it didn't look like it.
No, they want you to see. They leave that. That's financially, it's worth it to leave it because then they don't have to deal with a huge backlash.
Sure.
And they were talking about how these coal companies were suddenly just like, okay, no pensions for our workers with black lung, all this, all that. Yeah. It's scary. So if these companies have a vested interest in doing things their way and they've got the right political clout and connections, they will do things their way and they won't be punished for it.
Gosh.
So to play off the criticism that I hear of carbon storage on how like, oh, you're gonna pump more oil because you're capturing that carbon, with the bioremediation that you guys have, maybe the chemical companies can turn around and be like, it's all right if I pollute it because I'm just going to throw these microbes on and nature will come back, no problem.
I would love that, but it's an admission of guilt. No one wants to do that.
Well, I don't, but the thing is like, could these companies just not feel they need to change their ways at all because they're like, oh, we got this solution. We don't have to Yeah.
And I've seen that here with the Railroad Commission of Texas, looking at that, where they don't really push very hard on some of this stuff, because from what these guys are already doing, and when they're fracking or they're drilling, they don't have a lot of, they say, we do the test, there's not a lot of contamination there, but you also have mud pits, they have problems that they're going through. And
they're like, it's not that much.
Yes, exactly. These are the things you need to really kind of pay attention to. People now have been doing where, as the burn off, we have the flames out there, they're looking to see how far does that travel down. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things that paying attention to when you start talking about what you had mentioned.
Yeah. I don't want these companies to feel like they don't have to keep cleaning their methods.
Yeah.
Or doing things.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that, because then with some tricky math, you could easily say, we're net positive.
Yep.
Yeah. Like net zero.
What?
Or
net zero.
Negative.
Yeah.
They're really good at tricky math.
They are.
Yeah.
And they are. And so
somebody here was talking about our oil, the guy from, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, he was like, our oil drilling has become net negative. I'm like, what?
Wait, what?
How does that work?
It's the same thing, looking at that for Austin Airport. Okay, they're looking at being carbon negative, net zero. But there's a lot of things that you see if you go out there. You're one thing saying that you're trying to do this, but you're not really.
Right. Yeah. What are you leaving out of the equation?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. It's almost like that whole thing, except maybe reverse engineered. A lot of these companies are taking those small steps, but they're not taking the giant leap, which, that needs to happen. We're getting to the tipping point, and you hear that all week. We're getting to the tipping point with our climate, with the temperature, how much it's risen. We're getting to the tipping point. We've had incredible conversations. Something like, again, I don't want to be misquoted, but 5% of all vertebrates on Earth that are left, it's only 5% are wild. The rest are human or tame animals, our cows, etc. Only around 5% of the vertebrates are wild.
We got some wild humans out there, though, I'd say.
In Texas?
Everywhere.
All over.
Concentrated in Texas.
Hey.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. We are very much at a crossroads, I guess. And, this is my first time coming to EarthX, and it's been great. So shout out to EarthX. My mind's been opened in so many directions. It's a bit scary when you learn how many more problems there are than what you originally had in your brain, because there's already a lot you can see going wrong on the Earth.
You said something about that giant leap, right?
Yes, sir.
But don't you think there would be an economic backlash if they did take that giant leap, right? Because now you could be cutting jobs, or there's a whole nother side of this that
it does need to be stepped out.
It really it does.
You can't stop fossil fuels tomorrow, because
our whole world is built around fossil fuels.
Right.
We would starve.
But it needs to be phased.
Sure.
The giant leap's a nice idea, and I guess it's a nice metaphor. But is it feasible?
And I love the idea.
Yeah, is it practical? Certainly not at this point. We'll see what developments are coming out.
Sure.
But I think with all the pushing for the idyllic giant leap, it's actually getting the needle to move. Because when you're just there like, we should do it little by little by little, it can take a little bit longer, I think.
And it doesn't feel, it's like the law of diffusion that you and I were talking about yesterday, Crystal. It's like if you just start and focus on that 2%, that difference, right? And then get it up to the next little bit. And then eventually it will reach a tipping point to where we can push forward, but we may not know that tipping point. And what I hope, even at 44, that tipping point for change isn't too late before the tipping point of disaster.
Ecosystems in the world.
Because it feels like we're getting pretty close.
The systems are they're starting to teeter.
And you feel it. And I think only now are people waking up to this, right? And so that's why people like
they're scrambling, they're looking at it. They're scrambling, all right. Everybody's talking about climate change. You see these big corporations that are coming in and they're scrambling, looking to see how they can do it better, So with that, it's like join the fight.
Yeah, that's a good fight. Like, how can I do it better? I can do it better than you.
Yeah.
No, I'm better than you.
But the bioremediation, I think it's a very solid start.
It sounds like it. Thank you for
No, we would love to follow up looking at more of trying to see where we're at, and a follow up with maybe another episode looking at where we're at 6 months or 12 months down the line.
Yeah, because I really want to see what it looks like on the ground.
Sure.
Tell me
you want to come out there, huh?
Oh, well, that too. That would be fun.
Come on.
Yeah, we'll put
But
some
I want
waders
to
on you.
see, and just it proves, okay, we thought it would be this way. The bucket test told us it would be like this, and the football field test is telling us it looks like this. So
Exactly.
Right.
yeah.
I just want to put out a disclaimer. I'm not a PhD soil scientist, biomechanical engineer. So if anyone listening to this is that and they've got an issue with what I have to say,
Right.
please give us a call. Our founders, our head scientists are incredible people. They love these kind of discussions. So
same here.
if anyone else out there wants to learn more, we'd be happy. We really enjoy teaching other people about it. So
You said it in a manner. Look, I barely got out of middle school. I think I don't know, right? But I mean, but I understand it. Like seriously, Crystal, I understand it in a way that it's nice to know that this stuff is happening, and there are good people trying to do good things with. We say advanced technologies, but this is not an advanced technology.
Yeah.
This is something we're going back to the very
Basics.
Basics.
Yeah.
Back
like
to
seriously,
basics.
like that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
And we always look at, it's like, we got 1 billion employees,
yeah,
they're all microbes.
Right.
yeah,
That's a great way to look at
And we're
it.
old as dirt.
It's true.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're having fun. We're learning a lot every time we are always interested in taking on new projects. So, I mean, some of our R&D at the moment is we're talking with some universities in Japan trying to get some of their radioactive waste because it's scientifically accepted. There's certain fungi and microbes that feed off radioactive waste.
They're wanting to put it in Fukushima.
Fukushima.
They already started.
They're releasing it into the
Yeah,
ocean.
you want to go swimming?
So that's
go have
one
some
of the
fish?
areas we're looking at is what can we do? And again, we're not trying to make this big claim, we're going to fix everything. But we are interested in looking into any avenue we can. So, yeah.
You have any other? questions?
Honestly, I could keep talking to him, but everybody else will get bored with my questions.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me, Crystal. What a fascinating conversation.
Yeah. This was great, and I really appreciate what you brought to the table because it's a different.
Yeah, it's a different point of view. Yep,
Perspective
exactly.
and-
And being here at EarthX, meeting you guys, for 2024 is great.
Yeah, it's been good.
Come back in
Good.
2025 and give us an update.
I'm planning on it. I said this
He's been having such a great time.
I've been loving it. The people here are just incredible. I mean, I've been to a couple of conferences in my life, and this is the first time where I didn't meet a bad person while I was here.
Right.
And that's, I think, a pretty special thing EarthX has got going for it. And I've already said I'm booking my tickets as soon as they come
That's
available
awesome.
online because who wouldn't want to be at this kind of event?
The goal is the same. And the fact that there's not competition, like we think of competition in business or we all have to do something.
I hate to wrap this up right here, but I lost track of time and the other show needs the podcast room right now. So I'm sorry we have to end it here. But thank you guys for joining us. And thank you for all that you do. You're making a difference.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
guys.
This has been amazing.
Yeah.
That was fun.
See you guys.
Bioremediation reminds us of the incredible potential of nature to help us solve even the most daunting environmental challenges. That said, though, it's important to recognize that bioremediation isn't without its critiques. It requires time, careful planning, and monitoring. And it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Challenges like the potential for toxic byproducts, contamination, scalability, and the need for specific environmental conditions reminds us that while nature has incredible tools, the application requires thoughtful stewardship. Still, hearing from Cheyne and Rudy, it's clear that these tools hold immense promise when used wisely. If today's conversation sparked your curiosity, there's no better place to dive deeper into topics like this than at EarthX, the world's largest environmental gathering. Tickets for their event in April are on sale now at earthx.org. Be sure to grab yours and join the global community working towards a healthier, more sustainable planet. And before we go, a big thank you to my co-host Richard Harmer for bringing his energy and perspective to this episode. Keep an ear out for his new show, the EarthX Pro Planet Podcast, where he'll explore the people and projects making a difference for our environment. I'll catch you next time. Don't forget to go to forcesfornature.com and sign up to receive emailed show notes, action tips, and a free checklist to help you start taking practical actions today. Do you know someone else who would enjoy this episode? I would be so grateful if you would share it with them. Hit me up on Instagram and Facebook at Becoming Forces for Nature and let me know what actions you have been taking. Adopting just one habit could be a game changer, because imagine if 1 million people also adopted that. What difference for the world are you going to make today?